got the rest of our fuel, we came, turned around and landed on Gage Air and got chewed out by the commander there for putting the airplane at risk, but we saved an SR. This is one thing I mentioned earlier where both the A model and the Q had the old J57 engines where you injected them with water and created a huge
Water
amount.
alcohol, isn't it?
Just water, demineralized water.
And 47 used 50/50 water alcohol.
Yeah, we weren't the only airplane that did that. And I guess what it did is it got you more mass out the back end, a little more thrust.
We use water in the 105 too.
Did they on the 105? I didn't know that. Okay, Tanker 101. Because the Air Force has tankers, fighters and bombers fly deeper into enemy territory with more ordnance. Intel and recon aircraft can loiter longer. More cargo is delivered faster because tankers are out there to refuel 141s or whatever. In fact, I mentioned that we would refuel many other aircraft besides SR-71s. I've refueled every aircraft in the Air Force inventory, some Army and some Navy. The one that's most memorable is when you would take a 4-ship of F-4s across the northern Atlantic. That weather up there was always really nasty, and these F-4s really didn't want to lose sight of their gas station. And so they would literally tuck in underneath your wing so that they would not lose sight of you. And one time when we were flying along, suddenly every instrument in our cockpit in the tanker indicated bad. In other words, we no longer knew if we were flying straight and level because the ADI, the attitude direction indicators, all indicated bad. So we called up the F4 lead and we said, you are now our primary attitude reference. Keep an eye on the ADI in your cockpit to make sure that we don't go drift off like this, because they would just follow us right in while we pulled out our manuals and figured out what had gone wrong. In-flight refueling is a demanding activity. Aircraft are flying 35 feet apart at altitudes 14 to 30,000 feet. And when you have two aircraft that are that close together, aerodynamics of the situation means that they want to slam into each other. And so both pilots are very, very aware of that and are very careful about coming in close and then moving away. We have a special procedure that anybody on any crew on any aircraft can call breakaway. And if you hear that word, the receiver, if he hears the word breakaway, he'll slam his throttles back and push his stick down. The tanker pilot will slam his throttles forward, but he holds his yoke steady and keeps a constant level altitude. He does that because if he were to pull back to try to go up and get away from the aircraft, he wouldn't really go up, he would just drop his tail and hit the airplane. So you slam your throttles forward and you make sure that that doesn't cause you to jerk your aircraft up like that. So I've done a few of those. It's very exciting. Safety demands all of this. Military accepts responsibility for separation of aircraft. You're doing all this. Sometimes you're in a situation in these operational missions where you're doing everything radio silent. The SR is expecting you to be at a specific point and there's a massive thunderstorm there. Sometimes you just have to sweat your way through that thunderstorm until you hook up and then move away once you're talking to them on boom interphone and get away from all that nasty weather. And thunderstorms can destroy tankers. Tankers weigh 300,000 pounds or so. And we had a tanker that a thunderstorm had grabbed it. If he was flying in weather and he was about to, and his weather radar went out. So he was talking to air traffic control to get out into the clear so he could make sure he didn't stumble into a thunderstorm. And just then he stumbled into a thunderstorm. It grabbed the airplane, threw it up tens of thousands of feet, and it came out at the top of the thunderstorm at this kind of an attitude, at zero airspeed, and kind of fell down away from the thunderstorm. And as he regained airspeed, he got control of the aircraft and came back, or we would have never known the story. But thunderstorms are powerful. What's that?
You left out, no flame now?
Yeah, well, every once in a while we lose a tanker, and a lot of times we didn't know why. A lot of times, well, back in the early days, the center wing tank would have the irritating failure mode of blowing up.